Hi everyone, welcome to After Class
a podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
and some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
Or a cup of coffee.
and join us for a quick chat after class.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of After Class. Today, I am so excited because I have Stacy co-hosting with me today. Elena is still on maternity leave, but you guys probably remember Stacy from several months back now. At this point, we had her on the podcast telling her story of moving to New York as an adult dancer to pursue some really amazing opportunities there. So I really encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes. I'll link them in the show notes because her story is so inspiring, so amazing. So I'm so excited to have her on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about discouragement and as adults, some of the reasons that we become discouraged in our journeys, and then also how we can get out of seasons of discouragement. So welcome to the podcast, Stacey.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I'm so excited to be here. I absolutely adore you and Miss Elena. So just love the podcast and the mission and the value that it brings to our adult dance community. So it's always an honor to spend time with you and be able to share with the community what's happening with us. And this topic in particular is very personal to us all. And I'm really excited to be able to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you because, as I mentioned in the introduction, you've had such an amazing journey over the last several years of pursuing going all in on dance as an adult. So, in thinking about this topic, the reason I wanted to record this episode is because I personally have been going through some seasons lately of just feeling a little bit discouraged in my journey. And I know that that's something that you've experienced too, as someone who's very dedicated to your own dance journey. And I feel like today's episode is really going to resonate with a lot of people. And I'm so glad that you're on to share the things that you've been through too.
Yes, absolutely. I think as adults, particularly with all of the competing priorities that we have in our lives, a variety of things that we have to deal with, it's sometimes very difficult to stay in the game and be focused because we have so many other things that pull us away from our passion and our focus in dance. And so, yeah, I think just being able to share these strategies, if we can find one or two things that are strategies that can help us to cope when we go through those periods, it carries us through. And then we're able to re engage and move forward in the journey with a new perspective and new goals and continuing to grow.
I think, like you touched on, like it's one of the things I want to say to people listening is that discouragement is such a normal part of the journey. And so I think sometimes when we get discouraged, like I know in past seasons why I've felt discouraged, it's almost like this feeling of failure or what am I doing wrong that I'm feeling discouraged. But it's such a normal part of the dance journey, I think. And there's very real reasons why we can get discouraged. And you touched on one that I think is a huge part of it. Just with as adults, we have so many other things that are competing for our time and attention that it takes a lot of sacrifice to pursue ballet as an adult. And so sometimes even not having the amount of time that we wish we had to dedicate to it, I think can make us feel discouraged.
I totally agree with that. That's a very good observation because we know the time that it takes to put in the work in order to see the results that we want to see. And if we're comparing ourselves to younger dancers, per se, of whatever age, right? Their talent and skill, it just takes them a shorter amount of time to gain skills, remember choreo, be in a performance type arena. And so I think it's easy to get discouraged. And I think behind every dancer are periods of discouragement, are the lulls, the valleys where we're like, what am I doing? Am I moving towards anything? And truly, it takes an act of courage as an adult dancer, I believe, to steer the course because we don't have an obvious outcome to others.
Hmm.
And so people outside of the dance community and the ballet community will say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing all of this? Because our level of dedication is hours and days and weeks and months and years. And you say, I'm doing it because I love it. and it's my passion and I have goals.
Hey, adult dancer. Do you love the podcast and want more resources, news, and tips to support your ballet goals? Head over to thebusybunhead.com, your source for all things adult ballet. Stay in the know, find community, and fuel your motivation with resources like the bulletin board, a free monthly newsletter, and the Bunhead Book Club. Brand new to ballet? Book a session to get your questions answered. It's all waiting for you at thebusybunhead.com. Want to touch on too something that you mentioned about comparing even to younger dancers who are maybe getting roles or doing auditions, or they're moving through a structured program where there's grades. And I think that that can be another big reason why we get discouraged as adults, is because we don't necessarily have those benchmarks that young dancers have of moving through, a grade level structured program, and then auditioning for summer programs, and then auditioning for a company. And then when you're in a company, you're trying to move through the ranks from, to core to soloist to principal. Like, there's these benchmarks that professional dancers or pre-professional dancers move through that I think is a form of external validation that can help you stay motivated and like you're pushing for the next thing. But as adults, we usually don't have those types of things. Maybe there's an audition for Nutcracker and things like that, but a lot of times there's not these clear ways of measuring our progress or our growth. And I think that that can be really discouraging too, because you're kind of just in this broader world of wanting to improve, but not necessarily having a clear picture of what that looks like or getting rewarded when you do improve. It's really all on us to be continually finding sources of motivation within ourselves when we're not having those external forms of validation.
I literally was writing notes because I just felt that was so insightful, Hannah, on your part, with an external type of validation, whether that be academic, performing. It really is an internal journey. And I think when we're looking at strategies, I think one of the things as adult dancers that we can do is create our own structure and create our own ways of validation that can be quite methodical if we really invest the time. So I think it takes sort of a very academic, if you will, approach, sort of mindful academic approach to draft a plan, document the plan, put it in action, document your results. Like, there's a whole piece that can go into this that I think dancers can employ in order to validate for themselves the progress that they're making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that is such an important thing to be doing for yourself, is finding ways, like you said, to make those tangible documentation of your own progress, like whether that's journaling, whether it's videotaping yourself, as much as possible so that you have a way to reference your own progress. Because I think sometimes, especially, I mean, really in all forms of dance, but especially I think in ballet, the progress that we make is so small. It's in these tiny little chunks. And so in our own journey, it can sometimes feel like we're not seeing anything. It's almost like if you have a child in your life that you see every day and you might not realize how much they're growing up. But then it's like if you see your niece and nephew that you haven't seen for 6 months and you're like, oh my gosh, you're huge, because you haven't seen them in a long time. And I think sometimes we need that in the videos of our own dancing, of like, we need to be able to look back at a year ago or 6 months ago to really realize the amount of progress we've made, because just thinking about how I danced yesterday versus today a lot of times isn't enough of a change for us to feel motivated or encouraged by it. Like, we need a larger chunk of time. And so I think, I don't know, do you video yourself dancing so that you have reference points to look back on?
I do all the time. It's the most valuable tool because not only can you keep the choreo and refine it, but you also have that as your documentation for yourself. And I've done that. Like, I looked at when I first came to New York and, what those videos looked like versus now. And just as you said, it's incremental. The progress that we make may be very small, but it's wonderful to see that progress. And I think doing a photo or video journal is extremely, extremely helpful because then you can even refer to it before you get ready to go out into an intensive. Perhaps you're going to an intensive or a class outside of your home. you can use those videos to refer to just to reflect on your own progress and the things that you want to pay attention to when you go into those in-person environments so that you can glean as much of the information and corrections that will allow you to improve.
I totally agree. I also think too a big one for me that's helped in seasons of feeling discouraged is I really try after every class. I'm not always successful at doing it after every class, but I try to at least, a couple times a week write down not just the corrections that I got in class, but any sort of affirmation or encouragement, even if it's just something I notice in myself, not something that the teacher said, but also great if it's something that your teacher tells you, because I think that sometimes in our own minds, we tend to be our own worst critics. And so having a physical sheet of paper that you can look at that has affirming things that have either been said or something that happened in class where you held your balance longer or you picked up the choreography faster, or you had a really good day of turning, whatever it is, when you're in a season of discouragement. I know for me, there's been times where I've just gone back through my notebook and read through some of the affirmations that I've gotten, of a teacher saying like, really beautiful balance today, Hannah. You looked really well placed and pulled up. And it's like sometimes we just need to feed ourselves those wins and speak them back into our into our minds when
Mhm.
all our minds are wanting to kind of call forth is negative things and all the things that we're not getting and all the things that we're doing wrong and that we still need to do. And it's like we need to hear the wins. And I think writing them down is so important because it's really hard to recall those things from memory when you're in a season where you're feeling discouraged and trying to think about, oh, what, maybe I need to think of something positive that someone said. It's like, it's going to be hard to do that in that moment. But if you have it written down in a notebook and you can literally read things that were said, that's such a great way to help yourself feel a little bit more uplifted.
I agree totally. And even if you put notes in your phone
Mm.
quickly, what I sometimes do is I put notes in my phone and then I come home and then I write. I take those and I transcribe them because there's something that happens from the brain to the pen to the paper that allows you to integrate that information. So, when you are feeling discouraged, these are concrete ways that you can continue to stay engaged so that you keep going. If I could say anything to anyone, it is one day at a time, keep going, one day at a time. It's small things like this where you're writing things down, you're remembering those positive moments, and you're actually have them somewhere where you can refer to them so that you can sort of reprogram your mind into more of a positive mindset during these
Mhm.
times of discouragement.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things that I've been trying to remind myself of lately in having a season where I was just feeling really discouraged with my point journey is to focus more intentionally on enjoying the process and not being so fixated on an end result. So instead of thinking of classes as just a means to an end of like, oh, I'm going to class because I want to be this good, it's like going to class for the sake of enjoying class. And I think that sometimes the reason we get discouraged is because we're so fixated on an end result. And obviously, having goals is healthy and something that I think we should do as dancers. But I also think that the flip side of that can be being so focused on the goal that we're forgetting to enjoy the process and we're forgetting to just be present in class and even like allowing ourselves to have fun in class right now, exactly where we are in the journey, and not thinking, oh, I'll enjoy class more once I've arrived at a certain level as a dancer, then class will be fun for me. Or then I'll like let myself enjoy class and really dance full out because then I'll be good enough. And I think that can just lead to discouragement over time because you're never allowing yourself to just enjoy class.
I do totally agree with that, and it's taken me quite some time to get to the point that you're describing. Like, I may even just be evolving to that point now where I can say, "I'm here, I'm enjoying this, I have my goals, and I'll pick one thing that I wanna improve on in this particular class, and if I get it, great, and if I don't, that's great too, because I'm here and I'm working on it." And, one of the teachers that I take regularly here, she's amazing, and she says, "You're here. You're here. So you've already quantified yourself as a dancer." And I would say that to anyone. You showed up wherever you showed up. So you showed up in your kitchen, you showed up in your living room, your basement, your bedroom, your class, the intensive, wherever you find yourself dancing, you showed up. You've already quantified yourself as a dancer. So everything else that you might get, learn, progress is just added on to that. But give yourself the credit that you showed up in some way. And sometimes it may not even be that you physically got in the room. You may just look at something online. Like one of the things that I did when I would probably say almost a month where I just was completely discouraged, wasn't getting into class. I would just watch, not even getting on the floor to do 10 minutes of Pilates because sometimes, quite honestly, team, that is just too much. There are times when we really cannot even do that. So I would watch the Pilates. I would watch the class. And I will tell you, it just kept me mentally engaged during that period of time that I could not physically get myself to the studio or get myself to the floor to stretch.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's such a good point because the emotional part of motivation comes and goes, it's fickle. And sometimes we really want to feel motivated and we just don't feel motivated and we're like, why can't I make myself feel motivated? And I think that's where, to your point, those choices to just stay engaged, whatever that looks like, it might be just continuing to watch videos. It might be, if you can, that you're still just showing up to class, but you're kind of adjusting your expectations for yourself and you're allowing it to be a little less intense. And I think that's fine because I think it's the pushing through the lack of feeling motivated to keep showing up, whatever that looks like, even like you said, if it's just staying engaged by watching videos or if it's going to class, whatever that means, like there's that choice to keep showing up that I think is so important for finally arriving at the place where you actually break through the wall and the motivated feeling comes back. A lot of times it's just like a waiting game. There's these like weird things that suddenly make it click back into place. And suddenly again, you're feeling really inspired and motivated. But if you give up and walk away completely when you're not feeling motivated, inspired, you'll never know what's on the other side of that wall. And I think that that's why it's so important. Like, if you really love to dance, to push forward and the motivation will kick back in at some point.
I totally agree. I mean, I liken it to a relationship. If we approach it that way, it's a long haul. And again, the gains are sometimes so small and they take so long to get to that we do have to stay engaged in our journey. And we do. You will. You will to everyone out there. And as dancers, you will get over the discouragement. You will come back to a new and different place where maybe you've altered your schedule. You've decided that a class a day is too much. I need to alter that to 3 so I'm not overwhelmed. And it's okay. It's okay to adjust. It's okay to say, for me, I was at the Martha Graham School. I was doing the independent study program. I did it for a semester. It was very structured. It was very academic. It was amazing, but it was a lot. And so I had to say to myself, I need to step away because I have other competing priorities in my life. We work, we have families, we have people we care for or take care of or manage. We have lives. And so stepping away and having my personal experience, just having to get used to, I'm not going every day, 8:30 in the morning until the afternoon and dancing all day, which was my vision of dance. That was my vision of being a pre-professional dancer. And I did it, and that's great. But it's not the only vision. There are other ways to achieve that goal. And in the scheme of things, I think I'll enjoy this more if I just step back. And
Yeah.
so, that's the enjoyment piece and really finding that and giving yourself the grace to say, it doesn't have to be so intense all the time. It doesn't have to be intense all the time. Yes, it is intense. We all know that. And we're intense people as dancers and ballerinas, particularly. We are so intense. But it just doesn't have to be that, I think, was a huge realization for me. And coming through that and then into sort of a valley of what do I do next? I enjoy myself so much more now. And the expectations, I've decreased them on myself, and my body has responded in a positive way to all that as well.
Yeah, I love that because I do think that with discouragement, there can definitely be a mind body connection. Like, I think sometimes we feel discouraged because our bodies are like, I need a little rest. I need to chill for a minute. And I think sometimes the discouragement factor is like an emotional response to our body's need for a break. So I think if you're in a season of discouragement, examining that too of like, have I just been pushing so hard for so long that my body's raising the flag? I need to just chill out for a minute. And then sometimes you take a season of rest and the motivation comes back once your body feels rested again. I think a big one I think we've both experienced as far as getting through seasons of discouragement is the teachers and the mentors and the peers that you're surrounding yourself with. A huge part of being able to push through seasons of discouragement for me has been having great teachers and being connected to other dancers like yourself that I can talk to about, oh gosh, I'm just like in a season of just not feeling super motivated right now. And then hearing someone else be like, oh my gosh, yes, that happened to me a few months ago. Cause I think sometimes it's a season that you can feel kind of alone in. And once you start talking to other dancers or talking to your teachers and mentors and you realize that this happens to everyone, that can be really comforting and helpful.
Totally. I have experienced that. And I think one of the biggest components in this journey as adults is the community. You have to stay connected. I mean, that to me is an absolute finding that person or the people, whether it be in, your mentors, your teachers, your colleagues and friends. We've expanded so much with being able to meet people, particularly online, and being able to voice your concern is what will also help you to understand that everyone is going through this in one way or another. You're not alone. And this can be a very solitary journey. This is not in general, unless you're in a core, it's not a group sport. For the most part, I feel like the journey is very solitary. And we get in our head, I think, when you're in these periods of discouragement, if you do not step out of yourself and find that person, one person that you feel like you can connect with and discuss things with and really find some camaraderie, you may find yourself getting into a longer period of discouragement and just a little bit more difficult to come out of. It makes all the difference when you find people that you can link up with and connect to. You really feel a sense of community. And that's the great thing about the podcast is because it truly allows us to share the experiences and people have that sense of community to say, this is real. Our online community is huge. And the online platforms that we utilize and work from in our homes, it has really changed the dynamic of the adult ballet journey.
Yeah, I think having the community online is it's just such a gift because, you and I are lucky in that we also have an in-person community that we can take classes with, but I know there's a lot of people that they can only take class from home. And that's part of the reason I started the book club that I'm doing online is just to have a smaller group of dancers that get to connect and talk throughout the week about what's going on in their classes and things like that, because we all need that. And I think too, it gives you the opportunity to encourage other people. And I know for me, like a lot of times when I'm in a rut, switching the focus to how can I be an encouragement to other people can help me even get out of my own rut.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things I thought of just now, really thinking about ways that you can be creative, finding a new spin on what you're doing. I think that's really important. For me, I just delved into different forms of dance. So I said, okay, I'm not getting into my ballet classes. What can I do? And that's when I started my heels journey. Small ways that are creative that can keep you engaged in the process can get you through, and then that click happens and you're back on track.
Yeah, I love what you said about trying something different because I think one of the things that I almost always do when I'm in a little bit of a slump with my ballet stuff is I make sure I go out salsa dancing because salsa has been a love of mine for a long time. But since I've been getting a little bit more serious about ballet, I don't do salsa as much just because I'm tired from doing ballet classes. And so I'm not doing as much salsa anymore. And sometimes when I'm in that slump or like a season of just feeling a little bit discouraged in my ballet journey, if I go out salsa dancing or go take a salsa class and just do something completely different, it sparks something in me that gives me like that motivation again to come back to ballet. And so I think there's really something to that if you're feeling like you're in a season where you're just not feeling super motivated to go to ballet or feeling just a little bit discouraged that you're not making progress. Doing something that feels very different is often the change that we need to click back into feeling inspired.
Totally agree. It's not just ballet that's out there as far as online venue. Just if you just look things up on YouTube, you'll see other things. There's other platforms out there that I have found very helpful that have all genres, and we can link those for people who may want to explore other types of dance and they're not sure how to access that. You can access like the best dance in the world on your Zoom from your home.
Yeah, we'll definitely link that so that you guys can take a look if you're just feeling like you want to try something different. And I think the main thing that Stacy and I both would say is just keep showing up, because sometimes that breakthrough point is just right on the other side of your next class. That's what happened to me even last week. I had been feeling really discouraged in my point training, and I just felt like I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep going. Maybe I should just be done with point. Like there's been a lot of setbacks along the way. I feel like I wasn't seeing progress, and I just felt like, I'm just going to keep going to class, just going to keep going. And I went to a Saturday Zoom class, and it ended up being a class that completely reignited my enjoyment and love and desire to keep going with my point journey. And I didn't wake up that morning thinking, this is going to be the class that really does it for me. I just like showed up because I knew I just needed to show up. And you just never know when it's going to be the class. And I think you and I have both had that experience of sometimes it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yes, absolutely. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going in one way or another. Just keep going, and it all builds a foundation. And remember, it's a relationship. So just like relationships have their ups and downs, our relationship with dance as adult dancers on a journey, it's worth it. So please don't give up and reach out to any of us. I know Hannah always is available for her viewers, and I'm certainly available as well to encourage you. For each of us, it's a different path that we take to get there, but you are doing it. So please continue to show up for yourself, and you never know who you are impacting by showing up. So you show up for yourself, and then you show up for the community as well.
Literally could not have said it better myself. So we're just going to end there. Because that was beautiful and I feel inspired. So thank you so much, Stacy, for co-hosting. I'm going to put all of Stacy's information in the show notes so that you can connect with her and follow her on Instagram if you're not already. Her story is so beautiful and inspiring. So like I said earlier, I'll also link the episodes that we did a full interview with her. I believe that was last year, and connect with her on Instagram. I know she would love to connect with you. And as always, you can connect with Elena and I as well. But we really hope that this episode was helpful for you. And like Stacy said, we're here. So feel free to connect with us. Thank you so much, Stacy.
Of course, my pleasure, Hannah. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to After Class.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us, our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.